You know, the story of human history we usually get is pretty straightforward, but then you come across certain discoveries that just don't fit. We're about to look at some ancient artifacts that, by all accounts, really shouldn't exist.
Take a good look at this. I know, it looks like a corroded lump of bronze, pulled from the bottom of the sea. But what if I told you that this mess of gears and dials could be the world's very first analog computer?
That's right, this thing, it's over 2,000 years old, and believe me, it is not alone. It's just one piece of a fascinating puzzle, a group of objects that force us to question everything we thought we knew about the ancient world.
So, let's get into it. What makes these artifacts so shocking? Well, it's because they put a huge crack in the official timeline of history most of us learned in school.
We're taught to think of history as this nice, neat, straight line. You know, first comes the Stone Age with its simple tools, then we get the Bronze Age and metalworking, then the Iron Age with stronger metals, and then way later we finally get to the complex machines of the Industrial Age. Simple, logical, A to B to C.
But what if that's just wrong? What if the story of human ingenuity isn't a straight line at all? What if it's way messier, with these incredible flashes of brilliance that were discovered and then completely lost for centuries?
And that brings us to the core idea here, anomalous artifacts. These are the troublemakers of history. They're objects that just don't fit in, showing off a level of tech and smarts that seems totally out of place for their time.
All right, so let's open up the case file. It's time to look at some of the most compelling exhibits from what feels like a lost chapter of our past.
Let's start with that first computer we saw. It's called the Antikythera mechanism. Found back in 1901 in a shipwreck, this device from the 2nd century BCE used a mind-bogglingly complex system of over 30 interlocking bronze gears to predict eclipses and track the planets. Now here's the kicker. Technology this precise, this intricate, it doesn't show up again in the historical record for over 1,000 years. A millennium of knowledge just gone.
And it's not just incredible mechanics that seem out of place. This next one sounds like something straight out of science fiction, but what if our ancient ancestors were experimenting with electricity?
Okay, next up, Exhibit B, the so-called Baghdad Battery. Found near Baghdad, these are simple clay jars, about 2,000 years old. Inside, there's a copper cylinder and an iron rod. Now, if you pour in a simple acidic liquid, like vinegar, they actually produce a steady electrical current. Now, was it used for electroplating jewelry, some form of ancient medicine? Honestly, we don't know for sure. But it sure suggests somebody understood the basic principles of a battery long before we thought possible.
And hey, the mysteries aren't just gadgets. Check out the Piri Reis map, drawn in 1513. For its time, it shows the coast of South America with stunning accuracy. But look closer. Down at the bottom, it also seems to show the northern coastline of Antarctica. The problem? Antarctica wasn't officially discovered until 1820. That's almost 300 years later. The mapmaker himself said he used much older source maps. So, could this be a fragment of knowledge from a forgotten age of global exploration?
Okay, so we've got a clockwork computer, a possible battery, and a map that seems to see into the future. How on earth do we explain these things? This is where the real detective work begins.
Now look, it's easy to jump to crazy conclusions here, right? Aliens, lost continents, you name it. But the real point isn't to prove myths. The true value of these artifacts is that they shine a massive spotlight on the huge gaps in our own understanding. They force us to admit just how much we still don't know about early human genius.
A perfect example of this whole debate is the mystery of the Roman dodecahedron. Hundreds of these weird 12-sided bronze objects have been found all over the Roman Empire, but not a single Roman text ever mentions them. So what are they? Surveying tools? Maybe, but they don't have any measurement marks. Knitting aids for gloves? The shape kind of works, but bronze is a strange choice. An astronomical device? For every single theory, there's a solid reason why it doesn't quite work, leaving us totally stumped.
So after all that, after looking at all this frankly baffling evidence, what's the real story these artifacts are trying to tell us about who we are?
The big takeaway is this. That neat straight line of progress we talked about, it's a total myth. The real story of human innovation seems to be more like a series of incredible, brilliant bursts, genius ideas that flared up, only to be lost, to war or floods or just plain old forgetting, before having to be rediscovered all over again, sometimes centuries later.
So, the right way to think about these mysteries isn't to invent wild tales. Instead, as the thinking goes, they invite us not to leap to fantastical conclusions, but to approach history with humility and curiosity. They're a powerful reminder that the past is not a closed book.
In the end, things like the Antikythera mechanism don't diminish our modern achievements at all. What they do is make our shared human story so much richer and more complex. They show us that our capacity for brilliance isn't new. It's been with us all along, in ways we're just now starting to appreciate.
And that really leaves you wondering, doesn't it? If these incredible things could be made and then completely forgotten, what other masterpieces of human ingenuity are still out there, just buried under the dust of time, waiting for us to find them?